Well, good morning, everybody. Finally got some much needed rain out here. It's been raining pretty consistently over the course of yesterday through the night and into today. Rain barrels are filling up. It's really good news 'cause it's getting pretty dry out here, cold and dry, with a couple warm days here and there. But before we get into today's topics, check this out. Now, one of you sent me this. You essentially scrambled the name Tlaloc and found out that it almost spells Coatl. Now, Coatl is the Nahuatl language word for serpent, hence the word Quetzalcoatl, which means feathered serpent. The Quetzal is the bird, Coatl is the serpent. So, bird, serpent. Now, weirdly, this Tlaloc word also almost spells Katla. Katla is, of course, the name of that volcano that seemed to predict the current Icelandic eruption that is going on right now. I'm not sure if the lava has actually started to come out of the ground yet, but it is imminent and everybody's watching it. Helicopters, cameras, you name it, and everyone's got their eye on this. Now, I found also another connection between Tlaloc and Coatl. Tlaloc was the patron saint of the Aztec calendar rain week. The Aztec calendar rain week is called the Trecena, as you can see spelled here. And essentially this week lasted 13 days. And Tlaloc was the patron saint of this week. Patron deity, as you can see here, Tlaloc, the god of storms, bringer of rain, and also he's associated with volcanoes. But where's the Coatl connection? Well, the seventh day of this week was recognized as a special day, and they called it the goddess of maize. It was ruled by the goddess of maize named Seven Snake. So we have another connection, do we not? Chicomo Coatl, Seven Snake, the patron saint or the goddess of maize. So more links between Tlaloc and the serpent. Let's get into the top of the news today. I could not believe what's going on. You know, some days I think maybe there'll be some regular news and maybe I won't have to go live and report on this stuff. But the minute that I take a break, these people try to sneak stuff past us, don't they? What did they try to sneak past us this weekend? Well, this. Apparently, Biden has now struck a deal with China, literally teaming up with China, and somehow he's convinced China to merge away from its oil-based economy and ride off into the electric kingdom sunset with the United States. This has to be the beginning of the end. Now, how did this happen? Well, Biden probably explained to Xi Jinping that it'll be much easier to control the population with an electric economy. And it's absolutely true. And probably Xi Jinping said, wow, why didn't I come up with that first? Let's read this. And you have to wonder if Obama isn't somewhere lurking around at this meeting, maybe disguised as somebody else. Unbelievable. Experts raise alarm after Biden strikes agreement with China to shut down fossil fuels. Let's see what's going on with this. And then we'll talk about how this will fast track this whole climate change agenda. U.S. energy experts are warning of the economic and national security implications of President Biden's pact with China this week to move towards shutting down fossil fuel production in favor of green energy. The State Department announced this week it had struck a deal with its Chinese counterparts, pledging to accelerate the substitution of coal, oil, and gas generation with green energy sources like wind and solar power. Now, like clockwork, right? Because The only thing that was standing in the way of this whole climate change thing was China. One of the main arguments against man being able to make any change to the climate through their actions, which I don't believe is possible anyway, but let's entertain the concept. The only thing that was supposedly standing in the way were these major countries like China, who were doing gross pollution, right? They weren't complying with these agendas. Russia, China, India. Well, now it seems like they've just taken one of the pawns off the table. Now, of course, this probably won't really happen, but they want us to think that China is going to comply with this. And this is what they'll tell us. And then what they'll tell us is, no more excuses. China's agreeing with this. Now we have to all get on board. This is the psyop here. Again, will China likely comply with this? Of course not. But we won't be in a position to question them, will we? Because we don't have investigative teams on the ground in China. So they'll just tell us China's complying and tell us to shut up and get on board. Now, the way this is going to work, just so you know, this will happen within the next 5 years, is that when they think they have us all by the neck with this electric kingdom, they will just slowly make it really inconvenient to buy gas and propane in your life. You won't be able to get gas for your car. It'll be super expensive. Propane for your home will be super expensive. They'll just inflate the prices so that it becomes an economic hardship to continue to use gasoline or propane. This is how they manipulate the markets. I can't even believe I'm reading this article, but here we are. Now, how did we get here? Well, it's a series of unfortunate events, wasn't it? Because people failed to wake up because of the right-left paradigm. So they allowed each president, each governor to make incremental steps toward this goal. This is why they're building lithium mines all over the United States now. I couldn't even believe what some of you sent to me over the last 24 hours. North Carolina, lithium plant in a volcano, caldera, an ancient volcano. Arkansas, lithium plant in southern Arkansas. Nevada, lithium plant. What the heck is going on? Well, it appears as though we are in the midst of an Asian invasion, and I'll get into more detail of that. We're also getting into the controlled demolition of America. This is why it's now very, very clear to me why there has been a downsizing of manufacturing over the last 5 decades, and all of it's been outsourced to China, and then China then sells us back all of our goods through Amazon and Walmart. Maybe now people will wake up outside the right-left paradigm and understand that both Republicans and Democrats, as high as the presidency, were involved in this. They sold us out. Until people wake up to this, it's going to continue, and things are going to get really weird around here. Let's keep reading this article and see what else they tell us here. The nations which account for... Well, okay, let me pause here. Casey, why are you so angry about lithium plants? Look up what it takes to draw lithium out of the ground. It essentially destroys the place where it is removed from, and these places won't recover for hundreds of years, and it taints and poisons the groundwater, anything downstream of it. It's essentially a waste site. It's unsustainable, and we are now saying that we're going to build lithium plants on American soil, and they are actually in the midst of being built right now. There was no vote. This is happening in Republican and Democrat states, North Carolina, Arkansas, and Nevada. Let me be clear here, as these politicians like to always say, but then they're never clear, are they? It's all smoke and mirrors. Yes, our economy is shifting to lithium. There's been an 800% increase in the price of lithium over the last 3 years. That should tell you everything you need to know. Let's keep reading here. The nations, which account for nearly half of global greenhouse gas emissions, also agreed to deepen policy exchanges on reducing carbon emissions in various sectors like power, industry, buildings, and transportation across their economies. Now, what is the problem with an electric revolution? Well, they will set the price of how much it costs to charge your electric vehicle. And they can make that price whatever they want based on how much they want you to be able to travel. So you will basically get a slap on the hand and they'll say, oh, in this particular area, let's say rural Arkansas, we don't want people living out there off the grid. So we're going to make electricity expensive for them. In fact, we won't even put charging stations out there. Good luck. Good luck on your bicycle is what they'll say. And then as there's less and less of people living in certain areas, in certain sectors, right? Then they'll simply, then the industry and businesses won't be able to thrive there because no one will be able to get transportation to and from these businesses, and the businesses will leave. And this will create huge pockets of nothingness in America, places that they want to remain vacant. This is how they'll build the 15-minute cities, if you haven't figured it out by now. What are you talking about, Casey? Well, let me give you one prime example. When Bill Clinton sold out the people of Arkansas to NAFTA, it created ghost towns. It created huge places of unemployment in Arkansas. Same thing happened with Walmart when it began to consolidate. So this is a real thing, and it will happen with the Electric Kingdom. Let's keep reading here. This is very important. This agreement speaks heavily about advancing, doubling down, and tripling down on renewables when in power. The majority of them are made in China. So here they are, match made in heaven, in hell, right? Now, understand these people are just puppets. They're not really running things. It's Satan running things above them. They're just empty suits, doing as they're told, probably making a boatload of money. So you're basically writing an agreement that guarantees China a customer and guarantees their manufacturing sector decades of purchasing. Of course, China would love this agreement. And their obligations, they'll just ignore that. They've ignored every other obligation. It is basically guaranteeing China decades of wealth, guaranteeing America is going to buy their products. Not to mention all the solar panels, correct? Now, I will say this. Trump did shut down Chinese solar panels during his presidency, but that was because we got screwed on the other end, didn't we? As Walmart and Amazon became rich during the pandemic. So he was willing to give up a little, but really what that was about, if you really want to read between the lines on that, was the people that were trying to buy solar panels at a cheaper price so that they could be off grid were shut down. They didn't want a bunch of people buying cheap Chinese solar panels to build off grid during the exodus, we called it, in which lots and lots of people during the pandemic realized that we were screwed. And so they were like, let's get out of here. Let's get out of these cities. We don't want to be locked down. So essentially, by shutting down the cheaper solar panels, that hurt people trying to build off grid. And I know this because I looked at a solar system and the price was astronomical. And I said, why is the price so high? Oh, because Trump says you can't get Chinese panels anymore. And the American panels cost twice as much. So there you go. So these people move the chess pieces around the board, don't they? And unless you're paying attention, it'll go right over your head and you'll continue to support these people. So Biden's just carrying the football, isn't he? He's carrying it to the next step so that they can continue to tighten the screws. So what Biden will do is probably open back up these Chinese solar panels because this is all part of their agenda, right? And yeah, you'll be able to buy cheap solar panels, but then you're then contributing to the Electric Kingdom and what they want. Okay, now there's nothing wrong with I believe, an off-grid solar panel system, but only if you have lots of sun in your area and for the foreseeable future, and only if you can get it at a good price. It doesn't make sense to buy an electric solar system for the price that they're going for now when you're never ever going to make that up in electricity costs if you were on the grid, or if you have to go into a lease option to obtain that solar system. It just doesn't make economic sense. And so essentially this whole electric solar system thing is the price is inflated, and it's inflated intentionally. It's inflated intentionally so that less people buy it, or if you do buy it, they want you in a lease, or they want you locked into the grid and controlled that way. So it's like the walls are closing in around us, isn't it? The controlled demolition of America. Now, let's keep reading here. The agreement was finalized during Special Presidential Envoy for Climate John Kerry's meeting with Chinese Special Envoy for Climate Change in Sunnylands, California last week. And it came shortly before Biden met with Xi Jinping in San Francisco. So all this is happening under the radar. But don't get swept up in the right-left paradigm. See, this is a report by Fox News, and they're slapping Biden's hand. Bad Biden, right? But really, it's all the people doing it. It's Trump too was part of this. Let's keep reading here. The cooperative initiatives outlined by State Department will make work for bureaucrats, subsidies for rent seekers, photo ops for local politicians, and new opportunities for Chinese agents of influence and industrial spies. The effect on climate change, if any, will be negative, as the corporation will nudge the United States closer to Beijing-style central planning, production quotas, and groupthink, he continued. And he's right about that. But again, don't fall into the right-left paradigm. This isn't just Biden, it's all these people. Overall, while the U.S. is the largest global producer of oil and gas, which still drives every major industry from transportation and power to manufacturing and construction, Chinese companies will have established a major foothold on green energy markets. Wow, the U.S. has become the largest global producer of oil and gas? Wow, I didn't know that. That can't be right. So, according to the International Energy Agency, China produces 75% of all lithium-ion batteries, the key component of electric vehicles. So that's going to change, obviously, as after we just talked about the 3 lithium plants that are opening up in America. That's going to drop to maybe 40 or 50% that China produces. So things are a changing, aren't they? Wow. Now, all of this seems to be coinciding with a different kind of Asian invasion. And I couldn't even believe this. But when you actually research this and you look at what's happening in our country, we're getting invaded already on all sides. Of course, we had COVID, but it goes far deeper. The longhorn tick, for instance. Now, these are new and emerging Asian infestations that have happened within the last 3 to 4 decades. It's relatively new in our history, okay? The Asian longhorn tick spreading across the U.S. can clone itself thousands of times and even kill cattle. Look at this. You can barely see these things. What the heck? Talk about the heebie-jeebies. Now, what's going on here? Well, these ticks are killing cattle. It says here in the summer of 2021, Risa, whoever, an assistant professor to blah, 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 got a call about 3 dead cattle on a farm in eastern Ohio, near the border of West Virginia. The farmer had never seen animals so infested with ticks. They looked it up and they found it was the Asian longhorn tick in Ohio. But Ohio isn't the only place these ticks have shown up. Oh, guess what? Since 2010, they found it in 19 states. Oh, just happened to be 19. And they're native to East Asia. Well, how did they get here? Here are the states they're in. Unfortunately, Arkansas is one of the states where it's been found, and most states along the eastern seaboard and the Midwest. It's become a nuisance and it's spreading. This to me sounds like a bioweapon. That's a concern, since these ticks not only pose a threat to livestock, but to a lesser extent people too. The reason that people are following the ticks so aggressively is because of concern for public health. Thousands of Asian longhorn tick clones. So they showed up to this farm in Ohio. They dropped a cloth and lint roller to collect 9,000 ticks from around the property in an hour and a half. They just show up in incredibly large numbers. Oh, they just show up. Now, as a biologist, these people know that just can't happen. These things were dropped out of an airplane, probably. These ticks show up in such large numbers because they can reproduce asexually. None of the experts knew of any other tick species in the U.S. that reproduce this way. So it's a new type of tick. It literally replicates itself. Wow. Now, this is disgusting. What else is going on? Well, there's other kinds of Asian invasions as well. Many of you told me about this Asian beetle. See if we can get past all these ad pop-ups here. Close the ads. Close the ads. Okay. Now, what does this one say? Oh boy, kidding me? Let's refresh this. Try this. Okay, here we go. This is the Asian beetle. Now, I was all excited. I thought I had ladybugs crawling on my house, and one of you set me straight. He said, Casey, those aren't ladybugs. Ladybugs are essentially extinct if you didn't know this by now. Now, I grew up where we had real ladybugs, and you let them crawl over your arm and stuff, and they were slightly brighter in their color. But now, there's something different. Now we have Asian beetles, and that's what I had crawling on my house. They've essentially taken over the population of ladybugs. These things are invasive, and they were originally introduced to eat aphids. But then they found that these things can actually infest your home. Now, normal ladybugs don't do this. They don't go into your home and make nests, but the Asian beetles do. And it's because they're trying to stay warm in the winter and the fall, and they basically create these nests in your house. So, another Asian invasion. What else? Well, the Midwest is next on deck. The next frontier of another Asian plant, this one from Japan, the plant kudzu. Now, I had some of this on my property, and a neighbor informed me, you need to get rid of that because it's going to grow, and it's going to look like that over there. And I was like, are you kidding me? But here it is. The Midwest is primed to be the next frontier for the invasive plant kudzu. So if you see any of this stuff, chop it down immediately. Once again, this was another thing introduced into America intentionally that has since now grown out of control and killed much of the South. They even call it the vine that killed the South. It's been actually designated as a noxious weed as well. The vine that ate the South. So, when you put all this together, it appears as though we're being invaded. Now, if you knew this, then you would stand up and say something and demand change from your politicians. But unfortunately, we're well past the point of no return. Here are some images of the kudzu vine invasion. Wow. And I saw some of this back in the early 2000s. I was working in pharmaceutical sales at that time. I was considering relocating to North Carolina just because the cost of living in California had gotten so expensive. And we took a trip there. I think we spent an entire month traveling through North Carolina to see where we wanted to live. Anyway, that didn't work out. But I remember this. I remember seeing this driving along the highways. And I wondered, it looked beautiful at first. But then people were telling me, no, it's an invasive weed. And those were all trees that were literally eaten alive by these vines. They blanket the floor. They don't allow germination of plants underneath them. And then they crawl up the trees and literally consume the tree. It's like a snake eating its tail. So, what is happening? Well, no fear, of course. God is remaking this earth. This earth is done, okay? But that doesn't mean we can't know the truth about all this and try to stand up and say something. Inform people. If you don't inform people, how will people ever know this is happening? They will become part of the problem, won't they? Because they don't know about this. Now, Speaking of things taking things over, viral bugs, viral vines, viral ticks, the medical and science community keeps trying to fear us, don't they? By bringing up this whole disease X thing, which is the next pandemic, they're saying. And what they're telling us is that melting permafrost will contain the new mystery diseases that will come upon humanity. Now, we know that in Revelation it says there will be pestilences released in the last days. So this will happen to the majority of humanity. But how do you stay away from this is the question. Now, I anticipate that based on the programming, the next disease will originate from, or we will be told it originates from, the frozen earth. Let's read. The Arctic permafrost is 1,000 years old. As it thaws, scientists worry what it might unleash. Let's refresh this page here so we can get this. See if there's a video here. Listen to this guy. Oh boy.
Of the past. They have arrived as a consequence of climate change. So we are seeing continuing growth in the frequency, duration, and intensity of heat waves. And this is entirely consistent with the science of global warming and IPCC reports. These events will continue to grow in intensity, and the world needs to prepare for more intense heat waves. One of the noticeable phenomena that we've seen is that the growth in simultaneous heat waves around the Northern Hemisphere has increased sixfold since the 1980s. This trend shows no sign of decreasing.
So, what do they have to say about this? Deadly pathogens lying dormant in centuries-old Arctic permafrost could become the latest threat for global climate change. The potential release of the pathogens has seized the attention of federal government scientists, medical professionals, and Pentagon officials. Pathogens, disease-causing organisms, have been trapped for centuries in frozen ground across the Arctic, including vast swaths of Alaska, Canada, and Russia. Now look at this. So, what do? Oh, let's go digging around in the permafrost. See if we can't find one of these pathogens first and help them release even faster. I wouldn't be shocked if these people were down there with heaters, melting the ice so they can run studies and do experiments, right? But here they are, under the permafrost, digging tunnels, almost wanting to bring upon this apocalypse, aren't they? So, here's what's going on. They found anthrax in thawed carcasses. And, now that they've programmed everybody into understanding what strains are, different, strains that are impervious to heat and this and that, now they'll have everybody programmed to basically accept this when it comes out. Here's one such case. Brand new zombie deer found at Yellowstone. A rare zombie disease that causes deer to excessively drool, droop their ears, and become reluctant to move before eventually killing them has been detected at Yellowstone now for the first time. Once established, officials say there's no effective way to eradicate the fatal illness called chronic wasting disease. So, now it's at Yellowstone, and this stuff will continue to spread. Wow. Now, up to this point, they're saying people can't get chronic wasting disease. But, they're always liking to program us about things jumping species and stuff, aren't they? Crazy times, you guys. Now, here is the lithium mine in North Carolina. Forgot to show you guys this. $90 million Defense Department deal puts Albemarle Corporation closer to reopening North Carolina lithium mine. So if you're in North Carolina, this would be something you'd want to protest. This will fast track us to the Electric Kingdom. Now, I don't think any amount of protest is going to do anything, but at least you can hold your people accountable and tell them what they need to not do. Notice how when Trump was in office, oh, I can't tell the states what to do. Oh, but then now that Biden's in office, he can tell the states to do whatever they want, even in Republican states, setting up all these lithium mines all over America. Wait a minute. Now, if you didn't know, this Kings Mountain is also an extinct volcano. So there's something about these volcanoes, and they're holding lithium. Now, I believe these lithium volcanoes and where they found them was some kind of deal that they struck with the devil himself. I believe the devil directed these people to these lithium mines to find them so that they could then rule the electric kingdom. Now, let me check in with you guys, and then I'm going to tell you what's going on tomorrow. Wow. That was a marathon, wasn't it? What the heck? Good morning, everybody. Rain's coming down. I wonder if you guys can hear that through the microphone. Pitter-patter on the tin roof. All right. Well, what are we going to do tomorrow? Well, brand new series that I started to screen over the weekend. The TV series is called Severance. Now, many of you may have heard about this. It's directed by Ben Stiller, who has, of course, been involved in many occult films that seem to program things that had not happened yet, right? Films like Tower Heist and Zoolander that seem to program the Trump presidency and COVID before they happened. Well, Ben Stiller directed this TV series called Severance. And this is a really good TV series. It's definitely good to watch for symbolism. It's well made. And basically, if I had to describe it, it's a cross between The Truman Show and Office Space. So The Truman Show meets Office Space. And it's a psychological thriller, some science fiction in there as well. So what's this about that we're going to cover tomorrow and the day after tomorrow? Well, as part of an agreement, employers enter into a contract with their employees to have their brain split between work and home. And so what it creates is two versions of the same person, the Gemini. One version of them is at work. So when they leave through the elevator at work, their brain is wiped and they turn back into the person outside of work. And each has no recollection of the other. So what it basically creates is one person with two personalities. The personality that goes to work is stuck there because from their perspective, they wake up back at work again. So they're literally live their whole life at work. And from the other person's perspective, they never have to go to work. They just keep coming home every day. I mean, it's about as creepy as it gets. Now, here's the problem. The part of the personality that's stuck at work, which is essentially what their perspective is, they never leave work. And they start to go insane because they feel trapped. Now, the series delves into the psychology of the 40-hour work week and how the work culture is essentially mind controlled to accept the fact that 3/4 of their waking hours are dedicated to work slavery, which of course enriches corporations, but offers really no long-term stability or anything for the person who has to go to work, right? I mean, they give the illusion of some kind of long-term stability, but in fact, there is no stability, right? It's only as long as you can stay at the company, and typically, most people are only in a job for 3 to 5 years before they're fired or let go or laid off, causing lots of undue stress about how they're going to, rebound from that and find other work to continue to pay their bills, right? So essentially, you become a work slave, and you hope by the end of it, you have some kind of retirement saved up, but there are no guarantees, are there? Now, The reason why this series is so important and we're going to cover it is because there are themes that we've already covered. Themes like injections, black goo, the split brain, mind control and brain wiping, and there is also scenes of art trafficking, which we know what that stands for. Now, this released last year, and we're going to probably do 2 shows on this. Well, let me go into the chat with you guys. Now, again, no fear, right? This all has to happen. But we are awake to it. We know where it's all headed so that when these things happen, we're not shocked by it or let down by it, right? We know pestilences are coming. We know there's going to be an economy that is much more invasive into your personal life. And we will be under much more control. But it doesn't mean we can't speak against it. Those of us who do speak against it and who know what's coming will be the one that people look to for hope in these last days, and so that we can redirect them to the Father in heaven and his Son. So no fear, but you need to know what's going on, okay? Because it's all happening right now. It's starting to happen. It's fast tracking. So what it appears to me is that Biden is now the Electric Kingdom president, right? And now we can dig a little bit deeper into Biden and his numbers and his background, because he is the one that is pushing the end of oil and the rise of the Electric Kingdom. That's what he came here to do. And it's funny because, there are a lot of liberals that are upset with Biden about this. Why? Because, believe it or not, the liberals are the ones that are standing up and saying, wait a minute, lithium is a dirty element. It's causing child slavery in China in the lithium mines. It's dirty. It's destroying our environment. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go to the Thacker Pass, McDermott caldera, and look up the protests going on by the extreme liberals. Now, they don't have the answers either. They want us to get away from oil and lithium and electric, right? They want to have us all riding around on bicycles, okay? Which, that's not the answer either. But understand this is what's going on, you guys. This is what's going on. So, you guys have any questions about all this? Yes, brainwashing. Kings Mountain, people are already complaining about electric bills going up, and the water is tasting nasty, and the city will do nothing. They are all bought. Yep. Amen, Vict. So, yep, that's it. Modoc, McDermott, Oregon, next to the Thacker Pass. They're building a huge lithium mine that's going to produce 5,400 tons of sulfuric acid per day. Now, they're constructing it. And I would hope that maybe you can do a drive-by and take a look and get us some footage and email it to me and let us know what stage of construction they're at so we can keep an eye on this. Now, chances are you probably won't be able to get anywhere close to this construction site, but maybe you can. I don't know. I know they kicked the guy out, the liberal that was over there camping out, doing protests and standing up with the Native Americans there to try to stop the mine. He was camped out over there and they kicked him out and they sued him for like $100,000. So, hard to say. All right, you guys. Drone footage. Well, there's probably laws over there. You can't fly a drone. See, these people are insidious. This is why we have to stay on top of them. They're just slipping stuff right by everybody. And then, it's crazy. You watch, every once in a while, I'll check in with the mainstream and see what's going on. People are still watching their football. talking about who's going to win a football game and their favorite athletes and their favorite pop star. People are completely asleep to what's going on around them. Completely asleep. Tennessee and Kentucky bought too, says Sandy. Oh boy. More lithium mines there? Huh. Now, they want us to believe that we don't have a choice than to go to the Electric Kingdom because of climate change. This is what they want everyone to believe. This is why they spent so much time programming us under that lie, right? That any day now, it's going to get so hot that you're just going to melt. You guys, no, we're not. No, we're not. Yeah, I saw a couple of you talking about hydrogen technology. I haven't really delved into that, but that's another thing that they're talking about. I don't know if that's a cleaner energy or not. Here's what they need to do. They need to stop all the silliness and do natural gas. They actually have natural gas powered vehicles. The problem is there was never an infrastructure set up to refuel your natural gas cars. They actually had natural gas cars. Look it up. Very safe, very efficient, almost zero emissions, much less than on a regular gasoline vehicle. I'd be okay with a natural gas car, right? Natural gas you can make out of anything. You could take a trash heap, right? And you could literally take a dump site, a dump, and stick a giant piece of tarp over it and collect natural gas out of that. In fact, they have natural gas plants that do exactly that. So you're using your own garbage to create natural gas. It doesn't necessarily have to come from oil. It can. That's what we should be doing. Not all this crazy Electric Kingdom stuff. I mean, yeah, if they want to offer electricity and Electric Kingdom and batteries and all that to people who want it, people are stupid enough to buy it, that's one thing. But don't force us all under some lie to adopt it and put, deadlines on us. Nobody wants that, right? We want a free market, a market where things are allowed if things are adopted once there's a market for it. What happened to that? So, anyway. Yeah, common sense, but very few politicians have it because these politicians are making money hand over fist building these lithium mines. Make no mistake. It'll probably come out 10 years from now. Oh, Sarah Huckabee did a deal and made millions of dollars off of this lithium mine with Exxon. But by then it will be far too late. It'll be far too late. All right, you guys. Well, that's about it for today. I'll see you guys tomorrow with Severance. You're not going to want to miss tomorrow's show. A very, very good TV series. I got clips already collected. Like I said, we'll break that up into 2 parts. I'm going to get started on it now. It's probably going to take me most of the day to edit all this together and type up my show notes. And I'll see you guys back in the morning. Please thumbs up the video if you haven't already. And we'll see you guys tomorrow. Much love.